You know that you can qualify for mortgage loans for rental properties without needing a W 2, without needing a pay stub, and without even needing to show tax returns because you need all those things for a conventional loan. But for a DSCR loan, debt service coverage ratio, you don't. So, talk to us about the pros and cons of a DSCR loan versus a conventional loan.
Okay, and I've got a hook here too, because I think the listeners are going to be very, very pleased to hear at the end of this statement what's happening with DSCR in conjunction or comparison rather to the conventional. So DSCR, everybody, means debt service coverage ratio. It's a very simple formula. We are going to take the gross rents and divide it by the principal and interest and taxes and insurance and association if it applies. That's it.
$1,000 in gross rents, $800 in PITI, that yields a DSCR of 1.25.
Correct. Yes, you're absolutely right. The one that I use just to keep it simple is 1,000 rents, 1,000 PITI. That's a 1.0. As long as the gross rents are equal or greater than the PITI, you're going to be in a position to get the more favorable rates. Now, that's not to say that we can't go below a 1.0 ratio. You can actually have a property. We have products that will allow the DSCR to be a 0.75. That would mean in this scenario, if you had gross rents of 750 and the PITI was 1,000, you can actually get that loan done. That is
Huh.
allowed. The rate gets a little bit hairy. So more often than not,
Ah.
we're at the 1.0 and above. So this is just a really great way for investors who are either recently self-employed, maybe they're adjusted gross, they just write everything off for reasons that you can imagine why, right? They don't want to pay the taxes. It could be 100 different reasons. The DSCR option is such a great solution to provide a 30-year fixed mortgage, same, similar leverage, if not sometimes even better than a Fannie Freddie, than a conventional loan. You can usually leverage a little bit more in some cases on a DSCR, like a 2-to-4, for example, 2-to-4 unit residential property Fannie Freddie. They kind of cut those loan to values a little bit, and the DSCR loans don't care about that. So you can get the same leverage as a single family would in a DSCR. The only other primary difference is these DSCR loans are going to come with prepayment penalties. Typically, the standard is about 3 years, but we're usually not refinancing in the first 36 months
Right.
anyway. If you know that that's applicable to you, then you'd have to buy the prepay down or out, which you can do. Otherwise, DSCR is amazing. Oh, and I'll give you the little hook here. So something I have observed, this is maybe very recent, 45, 50-ish days, the margin for interest rate difference between conventional and DSCR is really starting to narrow. DSCR products are really performing well, and that interest rate improvements that we've been seeing for those products is not far off from what the Fannie Freddies are. And I've even seen examples where DSCR beats a 30-year fixed Fannie Freddie rate. Now, those are for the higher loan amounts. I can explain if you want, but otherwise, that's good news.
Okay, this is really good news. It's a time in the cycle where DSCRs could very well make sense for you without that huge documentation shakedown that you need with W-2s and pay stubs and everything else. 50-year mortgages and portable mortgages, those are both things only being discussed by the administration to help with affordability. FHFA Director Bill Pulte created some jarring news recently when he publicized this. What are your thoughts on the 50-year mortgage?
On a primary residence basis, I'm not so sure. I need to maybe put some more thought into that. But for an investment property, I love it, man. Anything to keep that payment down so that, because remember, we talked about earlier in the show here, the percentage of mortgages, let's just use our 30-year fix for a second, that for a rental property that start on day one and then stroke a check 360 times later to pay that to zero
Rare.
is a fraction of a percent, right? We are refinancing these things. We are selling them and doing 1031 exchanges. So anything that can keep my cash flow higher and my payment lower, I am all for it. Now, the people that push back and say, well, I want to pay off my mortgage in 15 years, I don't want to pay extra interest, you are welcome to do that. So there's a second piece to this that I think is equally as important as maximizing cash flow, and that is your qualification. All right. If this comes to pass, and right now it could just be noise, okay? And I'm speaking specifically for investment property. But if this is available to us, the debt to income ratio component, because think about it like this. So I'm going to keep using my 15-year and my 30-year because that's kind of what we understand. The payment difference between a 30-year 360 month and a 15-year 180 month can be substantial depending on the loan size. I mean, it can be hundreds and hundreds of dollars. For the individual that is dead set and say, I don't want to pay the higher interest, I want to pay these things off, we may have arguments about that whole strategy to begin with. But overall, if they still want to do that and that's their decision, fine. take the 30-year fixed payment, take the 30-year fixed mortgage, apply the difference. You can figure out that payment difference very easily, apply it religiously every month. You will cross the finish line in about 15.4 years. Download an amortization calculator online. You can find them everywhere. Plug in your numbers and you'll see what I'm talking about. If you were to do this, let's say the difference is $200 a month, and you would send it in every month with your 30-year fixed mortgage payment, you will cross the finish line to pay that thing off in about 15.4 years. So yes, you'll pay a few extra months of interest, but what have you done to your qualifications, right? Your payment now on your debt to income ratio, when we're looking at this thing for future optimization, never take the shorter term amortization, ever, ever, ever. You won't pay the higher interest that the 30-year or the 50-year will probably come with, because you've accelerated the payoff so long, if that's your choice. Now, for everybody else that really wants to maximize that cash flow and they get that they're going to be refinancing this every 5, 6, whatever it is years, take it, man. I am all for the longer term amortization on a rental.
I agree with you. I even like the 50-year on a primary residence. But yeah, Chaley, right here on the show, several weeks before Bill Pulte made the announcement, I actually talked about the 50-year mortgage and compared it to the 30 and the reasons that I like it, because I knew there was a chance it could be coming, since this administration is trying to do so much to help out with affordability. People buy based on a payment, not a price. That lowers the payment. A 50-year mortgage helps you benefit from inflation, and there are a lot of other advantages that have to do with that, although you probably are going to pay a higher interest rate on a 50 than you would a 30. And you know, Chaley, when the 30-year mortgage had its advent just after World War II, I'm going to guess 75 years ago, people were having this same conversation like, oh, 30 years, my gosh, you're never going to pay off the home. And really, that's not what it's about.
Not at all. Not at all. And remember, you guys, I would encourage everybody listening to this to actually go get that amortization table and see how much interest is baked in and how it is applied and paid. It is the back end of any of these amortized mortgages where the principal actually starts to get applied in a meaningful way. The 50-year mortgage or the longer term amortization is a huge advantage. I'm speaking for investors mostly. I love it.
Some people say, are you nuts? Look at how much more interest you're paying over the life of the loan on a 50-year mortgage versus a 30-year mortgage. We already touched on that. You're not going to keep that loan for the life of it. And if you just take the difference from the lower payment that a 50-year gives you and invest that in an 8% return, you are going to crush 2x to 3x oftentimes what the paltry interest savings are over several decades.
And somebody else is making that payment, right? We have tenants that are responsible.
100%. And then there's something that I don't know if portable mortgages would fly. And what this means is that when borrowers move, they could keep their rate, keep their term, and keep their lender, presumably, for the new home. You might have seen it in the news, you, the listener, that Fannie Mae removed the minimum credit score requirements from desktop underwriting. And Chaley, I think you let me know elsewhere that those changes don't affect non-owner occupied, but of course it could affect the broader housing market and pricing. What are your thoughts about lowering the credit score requirement?
So similar to the portable stuff, until it really reaches mainstream and it affects the non-owner occupied, I'm not deep diving into those things. The basis of it though is that, yeah, they're removing that minimum credit score requirement from a DU underwrite. That stands for desktop underwriter, as you said. That is Fannie Mae's sophisticated automated underwriting system. And I think it's just going to give more eligibility to lower income households and people trying to become homeowners that have found the barrier for entry very restrictive because they have credit issues.
Well, let's talk about FHA and VA loans, something that we have rarely, if ever, touched on. Our listeners know that I started out making my first ever property of any kind, an FHA loan with 3.5% down on a fourplex, living in one unit, renting out the other three. Tell us about some trends there in FHA and VA loans.
Yeah, we actually just did a house hack campaign. We did a webinar on it, co-living, all those different ways in which, the younger generation especially, and this is true for anyone, I don't want to pigeonhole it, can get themselves into home ownership and propel them into the real estate investing as an asset class. I'm such a big fan of this model and this strategy. For anybody that's interested and willing to kind of co-mingle or habitate, like you did, a fourplex at 3.5% down. You've got 3 tenants that are making your mortgage payment. VA, likewise, any of the Govy loans, which include VA, FHA, USDA. You can get high leverage. and up to 4 units. So I'm a huge fan of that. And then the co-living is another thing that I think is not quite mainstream, but I think it's gaining steam.
For those that don't know what we're talking about, you can use an FHA loan with a 3.5% down payment as long as you live in one of the units. Your credit score can even be pretty low, and you can do that with a single family home, duplex, triplex, or fourplex. You can get those same benefits with the VA loan and zero down.
USDA also zero down if you're in the right zip code.
How does one qualify for a USDA loan?
There's a website I would have you check out. We don't do a ton of those. We have the ability, of course, but there's income restrictions and all of this. They've got actually a pretty slick website where you can go online, type in the zip code, make sure it's in a rural area, what your income is. There's all these inputs, and it'll tell you if you'd be a candidate for it. But yeah, it's good rates, zero down. I like the product.
Well, there have been a lot of newsy items when it comes to mortgages, Chaley, and I think we should drop back before we're done here and talk about the basics. Just basically, what does it take to get a non-owner occupied loan for residential income property?
There's so many options for investors today that I would say that if you have access to, and even with what we just said, house hack, I mean, listen, if you've got 3% down, 3.5% down, you can probably assure yourself you can get into a property. And if you can't qualify from a debt to income ratio perspective, you've got 3 or 4 other models, which include DSCR, bank statement loans, asset depletion loans. Overall, I would say that this is an individual conversation. Chances are you could probably qualify today. And if you can't, one of the things that I love about Ridge Lending is that we're going to help you plant the seeds and show you how to qualify. If it takes you 3 months or 6 months or a year, that's what we do.
Yeah, we've definitely noticed the difference here and that you do help that investor with long-term planning. I do my own loans at Ridge, and my assistant here at GRE, she recently got the ball rolling with you in there at Ridge as well.
Brenda, yes, yes, that was fantastic. We are very looking forward to helping her.
Well, Chaley, I've come here with a lot of questions that I had. What's the question no one's asking you, but you wish that they would?
I think it probably would be for me planning. We get a lot of questions about interest rates. That's kind of top of mind for everybody. More about planning, having people that are interested in real estate as an asset class and an investment have the conversations to say, this is where I'm at today. This is where I'd like to be in 5 years. Tell me how to get there. And we can have those high level conversations that really sort of reverse engineer it and say, okay, this is where you stand today from an underwriting perspective. This is where you need to be. And here's how we're going to get you there. It's always about planting seeds and creating those roadmaps, as I like to say. So I would say that would be my top of my list.
That's exactly what you do in there. And that's really what sets you apart. Well, remind our audience how they can get a hold of Ridge.
Yes, there's a couple ways, of course. Our website, ridgelendinggroup.com. Please email us, info@ridgelendinggroup.com, and then call us toll free, 855-747-4343. 855-74-RIDGE is an easy way to remember.
It's really been valuable this time. Chaley, thanks so much for coming back onto the show.
Appreciate you, Keith.
You can watch this one next.